You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All right, and welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and I am joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. Alex has got that whole JOB thing still going on, so he's not going to be joining us tonight, but we got a great show for you. Kevin, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I am here in lovely Fort Lauderdale on my own little JOB trip. So a little bit of a late night. I see why some of these East Coast guests that we get kind of look at that time slot and go, really? But hey, here it is. We're gonna be doing this, and then I will be up at 5 a.m. Eastern to catch a flight back home to Colorado. So it's all good though. We're here. We're plugging along.
I love it. Yeah, that's always kind of the interesting thing, right? Especially some of those ones that we've had on the past were like, you want me to come on at what time? Like, you mean you're going to end about then? No. We're going to start. So I absolutely do get that one, but always a lot of fun there. So we've got a bunch of things going on there, right? Some weekend reactions going on there. We had some picks hit from our Friday show, some picks not hit. We did some pretty decent things overall, still came out all right on those. Anything else that kind of stood out to you as far as the week 2 games?
The Colts suck. I am officially abandoning all Paris Campbell shares.
Yep. Already right there with you.
Yep. I've officially given up on that. He had a prime opportunity with Michael Pittman being out for the game, going up against the Jaguars, really being able to kind of step up and show what he could do to help this team out and show the rapport that he has built with Matt Ryan, and put up a goose egg. I mean, the whole team put up a goose egg. The score was a goose egg. Jonathan Taylor was terrible. I mean, the whole thing was bad, but it was bad enough to where I'm abandoning all shares of Paris Campbell. I will find, other players on the waiver wire and build from within. Nico Collins, is something of that magnitude. Zay Jones,
Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson, who's on a lot of waiver wires for some reason. But I'm going to be looking in other areas because there's no point in the guy being on my bench if he's getting goose eggs dang near back-to-back weeks. There you go, Terry. You got it right, man. He's poo, and I've been pushing for him and really kind of championing that Paris Campbell cause here for the last 3 years, and I'm officially waving the white flag. I missed. There we go. We can star that next to the one I got wrong, and I'm moving on. It ain't worth it.
Yeah, fair enough. Leadership lessons chiming in. Let's go, boys. Always fun time seeing leadership lessons in the chat there too. So welcome in everybody. You can catch us on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Good Old Boys FF. And of course, we're live right now on Twitch. We're live on Twitter, and we are live streaming this on the YouTube channel. And that YouTube channel is the best way to support this independent podcast. Head over there, click that subscribe button, and help us out there. The march to 1,000 subscribers continues on there, and kind of inching along there. So very much appreciate everybody supporting us there. Kevin, we got the mailbag coming in here, and we had quite a few questions coming in here. Folks getting ready, needing some help for week 3. So again, guys, if you have some questions, you have some comments, things like that for NFL week 3, go ahead and throw them out there in the chat. Let's go ahead and help us help you for your fantasy rosters here. First question coming in, Leadership Lessons asked, they need a tight end to stream this week. Who is your tight end stream candidate?
Well, if for whatever reason, if Gerald Everett happens to still be out there, that is option number 1, 2, 3, A, B, and C.
Yes.
Now, to go along with that, there's Logan Thomas, there's Tyler Conklin. Irv Smith made an appearance on Monday Night Football as one of the very few, at least intriguing spots for the Minnesota Vikings. The drops bother me a little bit, but if they're able to kind of sprinkle him in, you can see some use there. let's see. I think those are kind of the big three here at the moment that I'm thinking of. Evan Ingram actually had a decent game against the Colts. He's probably on your waiver wire a little bit in some leagues. So
Who
maybe
knew that Evan Ingram? Who knew that Evan Ingram could have a 90% catch rate?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess one that's probably flying under the radar a little bit is Juwan Johnson.
Yep,
from the Saints. I think he saw 6 or 7 targets in week 1, saw 7 targets in week 2. So as Jameis is maybe a little bit under pressure, he's still throwing to his tight end. So maybe not the highest ceiling play, but Juwan Johnson has been plugging along fairly well, right? And able to kind of be a streaming tight end option if you're not liking what you're getting currently.
Yep. From what I'm seeing on the waiver wires very consistently on this one, right? Irv Smith, I've seen a little bit here and there. Gerald Everett has gone over kind of the 50% is unavailable in more than 50% of leagues, meaning that he's rostered in more than 50% of leagues. So at that point, I kind of take him off of the ability to stream type of thing when I look at the waiver wire and do our waiver wire article. But the candidate that I'm looking for as the stream of the week candidate is Tyler Conklin. You already mentioned him. 14 targets through 2 games here. The Jets are throwing the ball more than anybody out there. Joe Flacco, supporting some good receiving options out there. So Tyler Conklin's the guy that I'm looking to stream this week if I have to dive into the streaming tight end pool there. Next question, Terry asked, should I trade Eckler and Pierce for Mixon and Stevenson? And Kevin, Terry did we've got some results of this trade, but he wants us to go through and kind of rank it and get some of our thoughts and opinions on that, before I reveal the results.
I'm sorry, one more time, if you don't mind popping that back up. Eckler and
Pierce for Mixon and Stevenson.
I think I make this trade. I know Eckler's a little underperformed here for the first couple weeks. I think that comes back around. Dameon Pierce, we've kind of seen – we saw a really bad week in week 1. We saw a better week in week 2. I don't know if I'm serviceable, right? Like it wasn't an all-star breakout. So Pierce continues to get better. Stevenson, the Patriots offense has been a little weird this year, right? We thought Stevenson was going to, at least based off reports, kind of take over that lead back duty in New England. He's still kind of playing that 1B option to Damian Harris. I think in totality, you're just trading the same guys to get the same guys in return. I think I like the work share or the workload upside of Pierce maybe a little bit more to kind of balance some of that out along with Eckler's pass catching ability. So I think maybe I keep on the Eckler side, but just by a tick. And if you really want to pull the trigger, I'm not going to blame you because I've mixed in a lot of leagues.
Yep. And what he ended up doing, he ended up setting this one over, saying that when I told him we were going to talk about this one on the show, he said he ended up trading Eckler for both Mixon and Stevenson. He was able to keep Dameon Pierce in there as well. So that's an absolute smash. Yes, accept and move on. Mixon is a guy that I'm trying to acquire everywhere I can, just simply from the standpoint that he's a buy low, a little bit of a buy low candidate, which is still kind of amazing to me that folks aren't necessarily bought in on what you've seen out of him the last couple of games and what you saw last season on that one. Cincinnati hasn't necessarily looked great though, so I can see some of it from that side. Alrighty. Next question coming in here. Would you drop TJ Hawkinson for Logan Thomas or Gerald Everett, or should I hold? It's a redraft non-PPR. Thoughts on this one? For me, I certainly wouldn't. I would take Everett over Thomas. So at that point, Thomas is a back burner for me. So at that point, it becomes TJ Hawkinson for Gerald Everett. I know which way I'm going to go, but I'm curious to see what your thoughts are.
Truth be told, instead of dropping Hawkinson, I would try and flip him.
Mm-hmm.
Is I think kind of what my first instinct is, just because I like Gerald Everett. He doesn't stay in to block as much as Hawkinson does, right? Like that's part of the deal with Hawkinson is the Detroit Lions offensive line. When they're healthy, he runs a lot of routes, But as soon as one of those offensive linemen get dinged up, Hawkinson kind of gets pulled back in and becomes the de facto sixth offensive lineman because he is a very good blocker as well. Man, I'm going to say no, only – man, I'm assuming it's like a short bench, like an ESPN league or something
my
like
guess
that. It's
too.
kind of what I'm thinking. Like, I understand the allure behind it, and I wouldn't fault you based off of how bad Hawkinson's first couple of games have been. But I think we're all under the impression that Hawkinson's going to continue to get more involved, right? Like we saw DJ Chark take a goose egg against a Washington Commanders team that was freely giving it up to Amon-Ra St. Brown. The offensive line is nearing full health. I think their right guard, I believe, is coming back from injury next week.
And the center should be back here pretty quick too, Ragnow.
Yeah.
And he's one of the better centers in the league there. So that offensive line, which has been good so far, is only going to get better.
Yeah, I'd agree. So I think, man, I'd love to have a piece of them both, especially if it's any type of a tight end premium. But with it being a non PPR, I think you're getting about the same result out of both of them, right? You're hoping for a touchdown. You're expecting, 50 yards or so out of each one of them each and every week. So I don't know that you're necessarily upgrading with it being a non-PPR. So I think I keep Hawkinson for now. Okay. I think is what I want to do.
So and that's kind of the same route that I took on this one. I'm going to keep Hawkinson on this one instead of dropping him for Gerald Everett. Reason my thought process around this one was the fact that if I'm going to drop Hawkinson, who I had to have spent a middle round draft capital on, which we're getting to the point where draft capital no longer matters, and you've got to kind of throw that out the window and start going through that. But we've got basically a week, maybe two left before you really just got to come off of that thought process. But at which point, if I'm going after Gerald Everett, I am subscribing to the fact that I'm going to stream tight end the rest of the season on that one. And I'm going to have to start getting in there and really kind of go the streaming route. While Gerald Everett has shown that he has done very well, but when you really look at it, he has 14 targets. TJ Hawkinson has 14 targets. So they're getting about the same opportunities there. The Lions have been pretty good on the offensive side of the ball. They're putting up a ton of points throughout their games. The Chargers are putting up a ton of points out there as well. The Chargers should and will have more red zone opportunities necessarily than Lions will. And that's where Gerald Everett can kind of come into play there. But at that point, I got to looking at it. If I'm going to stream it, I'm going to look at the matchups this week and I'm going to base it on that one. And I like the matchup that Hawkinson has better than the matchup that Everett has this weekend. So again, I'm going to stick with Hawkinson. Same answer, a little bit different way of getting there to it. Before we get to our next mailbag question, Blake is wondering what is up with Derrick Henry and Juju shaking their head on that one.
So I guess first off with Henry is the Titans lost 3 offensive linemen in the off season. So they're trying to rebuild that offensive line on the fly. That the Buffalo Bills team is a buzzsaw, right? Mm-hmm. Like we all coming into the season expected the LA Rams to be a better team than the Tennessee Titans, right? Just as a team perspective. And the Bills dismantled them and then just repeated the process in week 2. So I have a lot of shares of Derrick Henry. I'm not panicking just yet. They're still trying to get their flow. They had, and the Giants game, first game of the season, right? You chalk that up. He didn't get the touches. That went to Hilliard, right?
And some receiving work mostly.
Yeah, some receiving work. And then week 2, they were out of it before the game started. So they weren't able to really implement a ground and pound type game plan that they like to there in Tennessee. So I think it's going to be a little tougher for Derrick Henry only because that offensive line probably isn't as good. But it's only week 2. You drafted him in the first round for a reason. You stick with that and you just hope it gets better unless you're able to find someone in your league and flip it for something that you find comparable. I mean, Dalvin Cook owners are probably thinking the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Week 1, they aired it all over the yard, and Dalvin Cook wasn't really involved. And then week 2, they got the brakes beat off of them by Philly, and Dalvin Cook couldn't really do much that week either. So it's the first couple weeks. The teams are trying to massage it out, but the elite always rise to the top, especially when they're healthy. You rarely see elite players, fall that far under their standards while healthy. Normally it's injury or suspension or something like that causes issues. So I'm not worried about Henry. I'm not worried about Dalvin Cook. Juju, this is what we feared with Kansas City, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like no one player is filling in for Tyreek Hill.
Right.
It is getting sprinkled around, and it is getting sprinkled around between Mecole Hardman, between Marquez Valdez-Scantling, between Juju Smith-Schuster, a little bit of Sky Moore. We saw Justin Watson make an appearance for a touchdown. Like we're seeing different players step up to fill that void that the Chiefs don't have. And while it's probably better for the Chiefs as a team. It's not good for fantasy owners. So you're going to see some good weeks out of Juju, and you're going to see some ugly weeks like here in week 2. And it's just going to be, you're playing him in your flex, right? Like he's not a wide receiver 2 candidate. He is a flex candidate. And you're playing matchups with him, seeing if you can gamble on the right week.
Right. And that was the thing too, right? I had several folks that when we would talk to people in the industry, that kind of stuff. And we had some of those conversations early on in the season. And I was telling folks that Kansas City's offense was still going to be all right. Like this was an addition from subtraction type of thing for the KC offense, where they were just going to have multiple receivers. It wasn't going to be, one guy kind of picking that up. Which is kind of what we've seen play out here. That KC offense still looks all right out there, but it was one of those that was a notion that was not very well thought of during the offseason there. So anyway, we'll go ahead and kind of move on there. Hope that answers your question there. Blake asking, do I drop for Mixon? Do you drop Derrick Henry for Mixon? No, I don't know that you necessarily do that. Well, I would, but I'm a big Joe Mixon truther out there. Quite frankly, you should have both of them on your roster if you can.
Yes, I agree with your last sentence. First and foremost, if for whatever reason it's player just one or the other, just weird league setup or whatnot, I think I do, because Mixon's involved in the passing game, especially if you're in a PPR league, right? Like what Mixon may not get weekly in carries, he does kind of see in 3 or 4 targets a week out of the passing game, and really. Mixon's yardage didn't look good against the Cowboys. He still had 19 carries, right? Yep. He had 19 carries, 54 yards, and 2 or 3 receptions. But it's not a bad ad. I mean, I can see why you would do that.
Yeah, I like it. Alrighty. We had a question coming in on Twitter while we were on here. Do I make this trade? They receive Waddle, Zeke, and Freiermuth. I think he trades away Aaron Jones, Jacoby Myers, and Albert O. He has McCaffrey as the other back, but don't have a top-tier receiver, so that's why I'm trying to get one. So, yeah, it's he's getting Waddle, Zeke, Freiermuth, trading away Aaron Jones, Jacoby Meyer, and Albert O. Albert O to Freiermuth, that's a big upgrade there. Waddle to Myers, that's a pretty decent upgrade there. Jones to Zeke, that's a pretty big downgrade. I'd maybe see if there was another running back piece that I could get there, but I'm not necessarily opposed to making that trade.
No, I'm not opposed to making it. I'm not opposed. As long as you understand what your expectations are with Zeke, I think you're all right. I think we could see a bit better game out of Zeke here this coming Monday night against the Giants. Again, another team with offensive line. They're rebuilding that offensive line. You have a backup quarterback. Your running back is supposed to be your best friend. Obviously, Dallas has 2 of them, but it really hasn't been lack of touches that has been Zeke's problem. He ran better than I expected against the Buccaneers. And the Bengals did a pretty good job keeping him in check, right? Like they did a lot of loaded boxes, trying to make Cooper Rush beat him. He was able to just enough, right, and make just enough plays to kind of drive the Cowboys down and win that game. But I'm not opposed to that trade. And yes, Zeke to Jones is a bit of a downgrade, but with upgrading at wide receiver and getting a piece of that Miami offense and upgrading at tight end, I think you're going to see Freiermuth consistently be better than Albert O. If that's the one downturn, then I think you make up for it in total points, assuming that all three of these guys on both sides were starters.
Yep, I like it. I'd probably do it as well there. Blake saying, can we talk about how D Swift is killing it so far this season? His performance is outstanding. Absolutely. It's one of the reasons I took him in our home league draft with my first round pick, and was the guy that I was secretly hoping would fall to me at my spot there. The Lions, and I've been saying this for a while, the Lions are going to surprise people this year. And they were kind of my dark horse to finish second in that division, in the NFC North there. Any thoughts on the D Swift? I know that's your guy from Georgia.
No, absolutely. Right. So week 1 was amazing, right? Had 15 attempts for 144 yards and a touchdown, 3 receptions on top of that for another 31. Week 2, the attempts were way down. And a lot of that was game script, 5 for 56, but he also saw 5 targets, another 2 receptions, and got the touchdown out of the air. Right. So realistically, kind of week 2 is what we grew to expect last year, essentially, right? Like, he doesn't do as much between the tackles, but can be dynamic at times, especially if he's going off tackle where he can make a guy miss. He's very useful in the passing game. As soon as Detroit's defense catches up to where their offense has been here these first couple weeks, I think Swift becomes even more relevant. Mm-hmm. But right now, back-to-back weeks, they've gotten in shootouts. Week 1, they're able to do it via the ground with his 144 yards. Week 2 is passing. It is all Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? And his ability to, break off a couple long catches. Obviously, the 48, 49-yard rush that St. Brown had also. And so eventually that'll balance out a little bit. But selfishly, I hope not, because I'm a St. Brown owner.
There you go. And DeAndre Swift had one where Goff sailed him just a little bit on what would have been another long touchdown pass there, 40 yard touchdown type of pass there too. So definitely involved there as well. Jeremy on the YouTube, Jeff Wilson or Damian Harris for the flex. I'm going with Jeff Wilson Jr. in this one.
Where in the world? Sorry, guys.
Yeah, Jeff Wilson Jr. has got Denver playing that way. Denver's been a little bit forgiving against the run this past week. The Patriots have had a difficult time getting the run really going, especially kind of between the tackles, things like that. And I'm going to go with Jeff Wilson Jr. on this one. I do like that play for my flex.
They're both on the road. No, the Patriots are home. I'm taking the Patriots. So Damian Harris.
Okay.
I'm taking the home game. Yes, it's against a tough Baltimore defense, but the Broncos, while yes, slightly leaky against Dameon Pierce, didn't give up any big chunk plays. Niners coming in on a Sunday night game is, that'll be a big game for Denver national television. I think you see more Debo, right? I think the Niners are going to try and generate more offense with Jimmy G back there, knowing he's not going to run as much as Trey Lance. So that RPO that worked so well for them the tail end of last year, I think we continue to see more of that. So the Debo factor, the Mason factor, there's just more competition in the Niners backfield for touches than there is the Patriots at the moment. And that's
yes.
That's scary to say in itself. So, for a flex play, I think I trust Damian Harris to get, 60 yards and a possible touchdown more than I trust Jeff Wilson Jr. to get 60 yards and a possible touchdown.
Fair enough. Guys, do us a favor. If you got any questions, comments, throw them in the chat there. While you're on the YouTube, be sure to hit the like button and that subscribe button there as well. It really helps us out there. Alrighty, let's go ahead and head to the next question we've got here. Jeremy, I got yours, but I'm going to get back to it here in just 1 second. What are your thoughts on Garrett Wilson? Yes. That's coming from the Stacks, folks over at the Stacks app. Thoughts on Garrett Wilson? Yes, I would say that he's an ad if he's still on your waiver wire. But I was calling for you to add him last week when we did the waiver wire column there. The Jets are going to throw the ball a lot. Garrett Wilson has looked good, and Joe Flacco is not afraid to throw him the ball.
Yeah, cosign. There is competition, right, with the Jets backfield. Both running backs are catching passes out of the backfield. Tyler Conklin, is a good tight end streaming possibility. You still have Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson. Like, there's a lot of weapons for the Jets all of a sudden, right? And in years past, we were talking about how they had no weapons.
Right.
But Garrett Wilson, he's worth an ad. I think he's more of a flex play than a wide receiver 2.
Correct.
At least at this point. But as we continue to see his rookie year develop and how Joe Flacco, at least for this week, and then Zach Wilson use him, it might elevate his status a little bit. But I would definitely add him. He had a great game there against Cleveland and part of their comeback for the win. So, yeah, I mean, he's a piece that you want on your roster if he's on the waiver wire for sure.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan. I think this is the ultimate buy low type of place for him because I don't know that you're going to get much of a better opportunity to get buy low on him. So I like it. Jeremy has a question. Traded CeeDee Lamb for Mike Evans. Yes, no. What do you think? I like the trade personally.
Yeah, I like the trade personally. Obviously, you kick yourself a little bit because of this looming potential of a game suspension for Mike Evans, but I think at this point we all kind of trust Tampa Bay's offense to get it in gear and get going. I don't think missing one game is going to hurt Mike Evans if that's what it comes down to. Chances are he was going to miss a game at some point this season anyway with a calf or hamstring injury that kind of chronically plagues him for a game or two each year.
Right.
So I still think he's well on his way towards, 1,100 yards and, 8 to 10 touchdowns.
Absolutely. I like it. Blake saying Tua, what a dog in week 2. What are your guys' thoughts on rest of this year with Tyreek Hill? So thoughts on Tua rest of the season. What do you think here?
Tua's doing a better job of finding Tyreek and Jalen Waddle both than what I expected. Like their week 2, so Waddle and Tyreek, their week 2 stat lines were almost identical, right?
It's the first time I think we'd ever
receptions.
seen. I think it was the first time in NFL history we'd ever seen 2 receivers on the same team with over 150 yards and 2 touchdowns in the same game. It was insane.
Yeah, and both of them on 11 receptions, I think it was, or something like that. So,
Yes.
this is what the Miami offense was brought in and built to do, right? Is big plays, chunk plays, that type of thing. So as long as the offensive line, I think, remains healthy, I think we can trust Tua to make the right decision, right? He might have an interception here or there. One of the interceptions against the Ravens wasn't even really his fault. So yes, it goes under him, but if you're watching the game, it's forgivable. And then, with that explosive offense, they're never out of the fight, as we saw against Baltimore. This week coming up against the Bills will be a challenge for them for sure, with as well as the Bills have been playing. But it'll probably be the best match that the Bills have seen so far this year with Miami and just kind of their hard-nosed mentality, right? Like they refuse to lay down even when down 17 points or 21 points, excuse me, and just kind of crawled their way back in it. So Tua fringe QB1, I don't know if I'm willing to kind of put him in that category week in and week out yet, and maybe that's just not completely buying in the way I should. But if Tua is your option, I think you could do a lot worse, right? You could be stuck with Matt Ryan. You could be, stuck with Jacoby Brissett or Davis Mills or Jameis Winston, right? That type of thing. So Tua's a very, very good option week in, week out because the weapons around him.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's kind of where I've got him there as well, as kind of that fringe QB1 type of thing there. Not necessarily as a locked in QB1 weekly set it and forget it type of QB, but he will certainly have his weeks. He'll certainly flash. I think that you're also going to see other weeks where he potentially puts up a little bit of a dud there. But that's what you kind of expect from a fringe QB1 as well there. As far as Tyreek Hill goes, rest of the season, you and I both had him kind of as a top 6 wide receiver coming into this season, and I don't think that changes. That certainly doesn't change with a performance like we just saw there as well, right? Like Tyreek's a type of player that can literally put up an entire stat line to get you a wide receiver 1 in one play. He is just that kind of explosive type of guy there. So I like it. Question coming in on the YouTube: is Noah Brown worth an ad on the waiver wire?
In deeper leagues or leagues where you're starting 3 wide receivers, yes. I mean, at this point, he's been the most consistent Cowboys pass catcher, right? Like you have to acknowledge that. And while he's not your first and foremost option, yeah, you've had an injury to Keenan Allen, right? So he went down. You have Mike Evans and his looming suspension. Godwin's out. Julio just sat the last week out. Like, we're already starting to see some of this injury bug creep up. Darnell Mooney has fallen off the face of the freaking planet.
Yeah,
and
with old Justin Fields, 28 pass attempts through 2 games now.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, yes, he is, especially in deep leagues. If it's a shallow bench, probably not. You probably have better options. But in anything that's, semi-deep, or if you're starting 3 receivers and a flex or anything like that, where it's more than just the standard 2 and 1, I think you do add him.
Okay, that's what I would agree as well, right? Like, there's something to be said about Noah Brown leading the Cowboys in receiving yards each of the last 2 weeks there. So in a deeper league, absolutely worth an ad there. Because you just don't know what's left for the rest of the season for these guys. So yeah, I would probably add him if I've got a deeper league there. But I'm not looking to drop anybody of any import to get him. On the YouTube channel, Gojo asking, should I start Cordero Patterson or Javonte Williams for week 3? That's Javonte Williams pretty easily for me. And then the next question was, should I drop Cordero Patterson and pick up Miles Sanders? So if you're asking whether you should start a guy or drop him, you kind of got your answer right there in both of those questions. So the answer is start Javonte Williams unless you've got something else there.
Yeah, you start Javonte, and I think at this point I think I am dropping him for Miles Sanders. Like, Miles Sanders has played very, very well these first couple weeks. Yes, he's in a timeshare, but the Eagles' offense in general has been relatively dominant on that side of the ball through 2 games, which obviously helps towards his stat line. But I trust Philadelphia to move the ball and put points on the board and for him to have more opportunities than I do with Cordell Patterson over the course of the season. So, yes, pick up Miles Sanders, and then, play Javonte.
Yep, 100% agree with that one. So, cosign. Alrighty, let's go ahead and we've talked on it quite a bit, so we've already touched on the waiver wire. We're gonna unless you guys in the chat there have any questions about the waiver wire, be sure to throw them out there. But we're gonna kind of skip our normal waiver wire kind of talk there. Any questions, you can find the waiver wire article and our rankings on the waiver wire over at goodoldboysff.com under the weekly waiver wire rankings there. And you can see kind of our thoughts on some guys to potentially go target, things like that. Let's go ahead and talk a pine and shine results there last week, and kind of a pretty good week overall, right? Like Alex moved to 3-1 on his pine and shines. He called for CeeDee Lamb to have a bad week, and even with 11 targets for 71 yards, I'd still got to give it to him. CeeDee was a consensus ranked wide receiver 18 coming into the week, finished outside of wide receiver 2 territory, and then he called for Breece Hall to be a shine. Expecting a little bit more run from him. Breece Hall came into the week ranked at like running back 34 on the week, and threw some production there on both running and receiving work. Finished as a running back 12, so managed to get into RB1 territory there. So Alex going 2-0 this week. Let's go ahead and head over to your Pine and Shine recaps there. How'd you fare?
So Pine was Damian Pierce for the Texans. 15 carries, 69 yards. Like, I guess he finished above his consensus ranking, but that's still a terrible stat line. Like, you're not happy with that. So I guess we'll let the judges kind of rule, but I'd tell you that hit. Like, just because he finished above his consensus rankings, he got 6.9 fantasy points. Like, that's just not what you're looking for in your RB2. And then my shine, Matthew Stafford, 272 yards, 3 touchdowns on 27 to 36. That game went exactly how we called it here on the show. The Rams jumped out ahead. They kind of controlled things. And then sure enough, here come the Falcons, and they hit the backdoor cover. Like, we absolutely nailed this on our Friday night show when we were talking game lines. So I'm taking the win for Matt Stafford. Consensus ranking was 10th. He finishes QB 8. The 3 touchdowns kind of put him there over the top. So I'm definitely taking the win on that, and I'll leave the Pine up to the judges.
All righty. So, guys, let us know if you think Kevin nailed the Pine, or if he didn't. Throw it in the comments down below. My Pine, and I got to give you credit on my Pine there as well, right? Because we talked about that before the show. I was going back and forth on some guys, and you said, hey, did you look at Deontay Johnson? I said, well, I kind of did. He's a guy I would look at Pine, and so I went with it, and I took your advice on calling him as my Pine of the week. He was ranked as wide receiver 23 coming into the week, finished as wide receiver 32, so definitely finishing below his rankings there, only if and even a half point PPR, finished with like 8.7 points there for fantasy. Not what you're looking and expecting at a wide receiver 2 option. I called for a shine of Joshua Palmer. I originally called for Tyler Boyd if T. Higgins didn't play. Higgins played, so I gave the contingency of Joshua Palmer, who ended up having a pretty decent game in that Thursday night game. 30 yards, 1 touchdown, and definitely went from wide receiver 4 territory into wide receiver 3 territory. So I'm going to call a hit on both of those there. Any other thoughts on the Pines and Shines?
No, I think we did pretty good this week, and the reasoning for, right? So I like it. I'm excited to see what we have coming up.
Yes, the ones this week are going to be very good. Thursday night, we've got a pretty fun, well, I say that just because I say it's pretty fun to watch football, but this is going to be a game that I think if you like defense, this is going to be your kind of matchup here. But Thursday night football preview, we've got the Steelers facing the Browns here. Cleveland has the advantage, early lines over 4.5 favored by over under is 38.5 points here. What are your thoughts here?
I'm taking Pittsburgh in the over. Pittsburgh, just because I feel like they kind of have the Browns number here. They're a scrappy bunch, but the over because both teams they're going to be putting up some points here. Like we saw what Cleveland gave up against the Jets. I think Pittsburgh's offense is more than capable of doing something similar. And we've seen that Cleveland's offense through 2 weeks has not been shy about putting up points as well. So I think the over does get touched somewhere in the neighborhood of 23-20, something in that neighborhood. But I think Pittsburgh covers here.
Yeah, I originally kind of had this thing at like Pittsburgh in the under because I think you're right. I think that Pittsburgh is, if nothing else, if Pittsburgh even loses his game, I think it's a 3-point game. Right, like these two teams play each other extremely close. Typically, and you talked me into the over on this one because realistically, the way that I was looking at this thing, the way that the folks out in Vegas have this line set, they have it set as like a 21-17 type of game here, 22-17, something like that type of deal there. And I think you're right. I think both teams are going to touch 20. In this one. So I'll take the over on that one. Alex is going to be the contrarian play on the Cleveland side. He thinks they're going to cover. He's also taking the over there as well. So best of luck out there to everybody rocking and rolling that one. Let us know what you think down there in the comments, and tell us which side you're taking, over, under, all that good stuff. Alrighty, let's go ahead and let's hit up the Monkey Knife Fight TD Mania, or the touchdown dance game here. Fun little game we play over on monkeyknifefight.com, and you can join us playing that over there. Use the promo code GOBFF to sign up. When you sign up, first time players will get a 100% deposit match up to $100 over there. And so let's go ahead and go through, and the TD or touchdown dance game, for everybody out there that doesn't know, you pick 3 players, and then you call your shot on how many touchdowns you think that group of 3 players will pick. You can choose anywhere from over 2.5 touchdowns, over 3.5 touchdowns, over 4.5 touchdowns. And the touchdown that you pick chooses which kind of prize that you're going to be able to win in this DFS contest. 2.5 TDs is a 2x2 prize. 3.5 TDs or more is a 3 times prize, and 4.5 or more touchdowns is a 6-time prize. Kevin, who you got as your 3 guys you're going with here?
Kareem Hunt, Deontay Johnson, and Amari Cooper are my 3 guys here. And so I went at the times 2 prize. So between the 3 of them, I expect 3 touchdowns.
Yep, I like that one. I ended up just going, what I feel is pretty chalk on this one. I went a couple of running backs and a tight end here because I don't think we're going to see too many long shots. I think this is going to be a ground and pound, and just try and whittle this thing on into the end zone here. So I went with Nick Chubb, Najee Harris, and Pratt Freiermuth, and I took the 2 times prize here as well. So best of luck out there to everybody. And again, if you're playing over there, be sure to use the promo code GOBFF. When you sign up, you get that 100% deposit match up to $100 when you sign up over there at monkeyknifefight.com. Kevin, that's going to go ahead and lead us down and in here to the Pine and the Shine for week 3. We're going to go ahead and start off with the Pines here. And we'll start off with Alex's pick here. Pine, he's calling for Raheem Mostert, Miami and Buffalo. The Bills defense is allowing just 2.9 yards per carry, and he thinks that Miami's going to throw the ball a whole bunch here. Who you got as your Pine, and who you got as your Shine?
So my Pine this week is DJ Moore going up against the New Orleans Saints. The passing game for the Panthers has not necessarily been electric this season to start with. It's been okay, but not great. And we just saw the Saints hold Tom Brady and company in check, right? Like the last, little bit of the game, interceptions and everything kind of took over, and they were able to squeeze away there with the 10-point win. But it was close throughout the game, and 3-3 for, 65% of the game, it felt like. So I think they keep DJ Moore in check, and he is not going to be able to kind of reach his fantasy value this week.
I like it. I like it a lot. I'm going to call for Christian Kirk, who just came off of a pretty big game there last week. I'm going to call for him to be my Pine this week. They're going up against the Chargers. The Chargers have had a pretty solid defense here lately. So I'm not going to see Christian Kirk doing a whole lot against that one. And I'd see the Jaguars potentially struggling here a little bit against a pretty stout Chargers defense here. All righty, let's go ahead and we're going to head on over into the Shines. So on the Shine, who we think is going to have a wonderful game in week 3, Alex is calling for Greg Dortch, who has had a pretty darn good year so far. 11 receptions on 13 targets, 118 yards and a touchdown. The Rams are allowing a 75% completion rating, which is worse in the NFL so far. Who you got as your Shine?
My Shine this week is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Going up against Minnesota. The Monday night telecast really did a good job of highlighting the fact that Minnesota is very content with just staying in zone coverage, right? Sometimes it's, cover 3, cover 4, cover 2, cover 6 every once in a while. Like, if they're going to keep playing that zone coverage, I like Jared Goff's ability to have time in the pocket and being able to find his favorite target. So I expect St. Brown to have another very productive week. And he has made my Shine list.
I like it. 2 big games in a row. You gotta like that, and like that kind of consistency there. So I certainly hope it comes true here. my shine of the week, I'm going to call for David Montgomery to have another big game. David Montgomery having a good game last week against the Packers. And they're going up against the Texans this week. The Texans have been allowing the second most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Typically, teams that are playing the Texans score about 4.7 more fantasy points at the running back position than other teams there. And so, yeah, that's about 20% more than the average there. So I'm going to take David Montgomery to come through, have another good game. Plus, looking at it, I don't know that the Bears have any other way of moving the ball down the field other than hand the ball to David Montgomery and hope that he can just plug and chug and make something happen there. Because it's kind of crazy when you think about it. Joe Flacco thrown the ball 102 times this season through 2 games. The Bears and Justin Fields have thrown the ball 28 times there. So Joe Flacco is likely to throw the ball in as many times in one half as Justin Fields is through 2 games. But this is the Bears have got to do something out there. Got to do something. Any other thoughts here on the Pines and the Shines?
No, I like our chances here this week. I think we both, all 3 of us, really have some good insight on what's going on here right now.
I like it. All righty, so let's go ahead and talk about some flex fantasy here. So flex fantasy, if you're looking for a fun, new, and unique way to play fantasy football, you got to check out flex fantasy. The best way to challenge people not in your league. Do you have a disagreement amongst your friends or your coworkers about who has the better fantasy team? You can settle that debate with Flex Fantasy, and you can sign up over there at flex.fan/goodoldboysff. That's FLEX.FAN/GOODOLDBOYSFF and sign up and play and challenge us over there today. That one always gets me fired up. I'm ready to go pick some flex fantasy, and let's go ahead and get on into this one. So with flex fantasy, you can hop in here and you can absolutely take a look at some of the different matchups, things like that. And what's great about it is you can set it up there. You can open a challenge up. You can have your buddy hop in and challenge you, or you can just set an open challenge and have somebody else on the site challenge your team, challenge your roster. But what's a lot of fun is you can look at all of these matchups here and look at these things. And you can make a selection and think, pick who you think is going to win here. So we've got a matchup between Digging It and Dub's team. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. This is going to be a best ball format here. And so on one side, we've got Lamar Jackson, Javonte Williams, Chase Edmonds, A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase, Pat Fryermuth, Deontay Johnson, Tyler Lockett, Tyler Bass, and the New Orleans defense on one side, with that bench consisting of James Cook, Drake London, Micah Parsons, Mike Davis, Matt Stafford, Isaiah Simmons, Chase Young, Winfield, and Garrett Wilson. On the other side, we've got Josh Allen, Joe Mixon, Cam Akers, Stephon Diggs, Robert Woods, Darren Waller, J.K. Dobbins, Damian Harris, Matt Prater, Buffalo's defense. And on the bench, you got Gabe Davis, Cordero Patterson, Drake London, Deshaun Watson, and Chris Olave. So, Kevin, which side do you like here?
I'm liking Digging It, and it's simply because of the connection that Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs have had lately. It has just been really, really fun to watch these two play football together here these first couple weeks of the season. Miami will definitely present a couple of different challenges, but with the way Buffalo is playing here at the moment, it's really hard not to go against any type of pairing of players here between Allen and Diggs. Can Cam Akers continue to improve upon his timeshare. We'll see. And J.K. Dobbins, I think you're going to see Cordell Patterson in instead of Dobbins. There is kind of what I'm expecting.
That would be my expectation there as well. Drake London, who's definitely has flashed there a little bit. Gabe Davis also flashing a little bit there as well. We could see one of those two instead of Patterson up there as well, just depending upon how it goes. But I think you're right. I'm going to go with digging it there as well. So that's what we're going to call. There is a call for digging it. So the next one up, we have got Field of Dream versus Jax Falcone's team. So let's take a look at this one. This one is a best ball challenge here as well. And let's look at the matchups here. A little bit of a shorter bench here, but we've got Patrick Mahomes, Michael Thomas, Deontay Johnson, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Dillon, Darren Waller, J.K. Dobbins as kind of a starting lineup right now, with the bench being DJ Moore, Rondell Moore, Justin Fields, Rashad White, Jamal Williams, Palmer, Dotson, Wan'Dale Robinson, Albert Okwuegbunam. And then on the other side, we've got Lamar Jackson, Deebo Samuel, CeeDee Lamb, Jonathan Taylor, Javonte Williams, Schultz, Sutton, followed with Chase, Waller, Elijah Moore, Carson Wentz, Sky Moore, Jet McKinnon, Dawson Knox, Kobe Brissett. For me, I think I lean pretty heavily towards Jax Falcone's team. What are your thoughts here?
I think I'm leaning that same direction, right? And Mahomes is going to do his part. That Cowboys defense has been playing well, right? Their offense has its own set of challenges, but the defense has been playing well, so I think it's going to keep Saquon in check. With that Green Bay offense between Dillon and Aaron Jones, it's hard to tell which one's going to get the better, run that week. And I love me some Cortland Sutton. He's off to a strong start to the season also, even without scoring a touchdown here in the first 2 weeks. So I like Jax's team here as well, Derek.
Yeah, I was looking at that and kind of going through that and just went, yep, that makes a lot of sense to me. Let's go ahead and head back here to the arena. We're going to pick one more here and go through it. In fact, we have somebody that challenged one of our teams here. So let's take a look at that one here. We got Will's Wonderful Teams versus one of my teams here. And it is a best ball challenge. We got Tom Brady, Cooper Kupp, Terry McLaurin, James Conner, A.J. Dillon, Travis Kelce, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Mark Andrews, Tony Pollard, Russell Gage, Trey Lance, Gerald Everett. And there's no defenses here. So that's on one side. On the other side, we got Jalen Hurts, Deontay Johnson, Terry McLaurin, Jonathan Taylor, Javonte Williams, Mike Gesicki, CEH, Stafford, Ertz, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Carson Wentz, Paris Campbell, who will be dropped before this matchup comes to play, Devin Singletary, Devin Duvernay, and Julio Jones. Which side do you like here?
So what I do like is McLaurin and St. Brown kind of cancel each other out, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm including St. Brown in your starting lineup because he's my shine of the week, and I'd be crazy not to. So Connor's a little nicked up. I like Jonathan Taylor to try and respond a little bit after a bad week one. CEH has kind of been on fire here for the Chiefs also. So let's see here. Tom Brady with a lack of receivers, Jalen Hurts with his running ability. Derek, I like your team by a hair.
Yeah, I kind of like it as well. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of things that are going to cancel out here. Some things that I think, they've got the edge on me is certainly in the tight end ability there. I think I've certainly got them edged out when it comes to running backs there. They've got the edge when it comes to wide receivers there a little bit, right? Because you're talking pretty much at that point, you're just talking Kupp versus Deontay Johnson and then Hurts versus Brady. I actually like Hurts a little bit better than Brady this week as well. So we're going to go ahead and pick me on that one there as well. Alrighty, Kevin, I think that's going to go ahead and kind of start bringing us down here to the end of it. Any final thoughts here on Flex Fantasy?
No, obviously, you guys jump on in, right? You guys can still jump in, still add your rosters, be a part of the arena, right? And take on some challenges or make a couple challenges of your own, get a chance to come up against the boys here and see how you stack up. So check it out.
I like it. And again, you can sign up over at Flex Fantasy. That's at flex.fan/good old boys FF. That's FLEX.FAN/GOODOLDBOYSFF. And come challenge the boys over there. It's always a lot of fun playing on the Flex Fantasy there. Yeah, worth a check out. Let's go ahead and we've got another question coming in here. Smokey the cat. Two cats there, in case you were curious. There's two. Hello, I need some advice on a 12-team PPR. They get Higgins for Monty. Running backs left would be Zeke, Henderson, Hunt, Madison. The wide receivers are Justin Jefferson, Renfro, Ayuk, Gallup, Godwin. Thoughts? Thanks. I'm sticking with Monty.
I'm sticking with Monty too. It's a lot easier to stream wide receivers and kind of change some of that out if you're not happy with it, as opposed to running backs. So I would keep Monty there. That way you can kind of play musical running back between Monty, Zeke, Henderson, and Hunt. And then if Cook goes down, obviously Madison gets tossed in there right away. But I would not make this trade.
No, I mean, I'm looking at it right. Higgins gets you what, a wide receiver 2 at best. Godwin healthy fulfills that same type of role there. So at that point, you're looking more at a Higgins is probably a flex position. Monty has the best running back, like the best schedule for running backs this year from a fantasy perspective, right? We already covered that the Bears have shown an inability to move the ball when it's not in Monty's hands. So I'm going to stick with David Montgomery there, and it's not going to be close on that one. So Smokey, no, would not make that trade there. Hopefully that helps. Kevin, I do believe that's going to take us down here to the end of it. Any final thoughts out there for the listeners and viewers?
Obviously, 2 weeks, right? Keep grinding, improve your team, how you can through the waiver wire. If you have some guys who maybe aren't panning out, start jockeying, right? We're still early in the season, but it's never too early to look to improve. I wouldn't say panic, right? We've seen some pretty big name players who have yet to reach their potential here early on in the season. But, if you're dropping your 4th receiver for an improvement, somewhere else, that's what the end of the bench is for, right? You're trying to jockey for position there because you never quite know what hits. So check out the website. We have the waiver wire stuff up there. Feel free to shoot us any type of a message, a tweet, a DM, whatever you guys have across all the socials at Good Old Boys FF, and we'll be more than happy to help y'all out however we can.
Absolutely. So guys, that's going to do it for us. Again, Kevin just gave that spiel. So make sure that you are, you're sending us over all those questions. We love chatting with you. I love helping you guys out there. You can catch us on the Friday show where we go through all of the different matchups, all the different lines there. And we go through and pick some of our favorite props from each one of the games there, as well as the fact that we've got the Sunday morning tailgate show for you as well to help with any of those last minute, any of those last minute decisions, start sits, all of those types of things there as well. The Friday show, we go live Friday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern, and on the Sunday shows live at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. A lot of fun on both of those ones. I know I'll be there, so I hope to see you there too. Anyway, I'm cracking myself up tonight, which means that it's probably just too late and we need to call this a night. But socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Good Old Boys FF. Again, the best way to support this independent show is on the YouTube, the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button, hit the like button on the videos, leave us some comments. We love chatting and interacting. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a great one. Be safe.